Alright, I think we're rolling. It has definitely been a very long time since I've been able to come back on here, but I've just been busy studying these planes. Eventually, I have switched over from Xbox to PC, obviously, so it has been, making sure that, I, got things ready for you guys. I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing, studying these new planes, and I was just getting so tired of the Xbox and their, it is good for what it is, but I mean, compared to if you want to get some really good simulation, it's just PC is the way to go. Unfortunately, it's like, it is expensive. Um, but I basically just had to just pull the trigger and just get one and build it myself, and I've just been enjoying it every single moment and just flying what I've done and learning more stuff that I have. It's just been amazing. So it's been good, and I feel like I'm comfortable to be back into the seat, to start getting flying again. I've been flying for this whole time, obviously practicing and just getting used to the PC, getting the mods that I need to make it more realistic, and also learning the streaming software. So it's definitely been a long road, but I think I'm in a good position to kind of get back into the seat and come up with even better flights. Just flying to cooler places with better planes, and I just think MSFS is going to be in a really good position next year with all these new planes that are coming, and I just can't wait to start learning and flying those planes and everything. So I think it's just going to be really good moving forward. So yeah, I appreciate you guys waiting, and this is the first stream of many to come, so hopefully this goes well. I think so. Everything's looking good on my end. Fish Guns Fitness, congrats on the PC. Thank you. It's been, as I said before, it's been quite a, I was dealing with Xbox. It was just getting too much for me, just crashing all the time. Seeing the potential that everyone else was getting on PC, it definitely seemed I was really missing out. So I really think that moving to PC is definitely a good direction for a lot of people. And I think PC parts nowadays are pretty cheap, for the most part, for decent hardware. I got mine in reasonably priced. I looked at a lot of YouTubers for building computers, and I think it really worked out. And I think I've been playing Flight Simulator, and it's just been on PC. It's just been nothing but it's just been great, with all these add-ons and stuff. So it's just, I feel like a lot of people are in the same boat with Xbox, and it is good. I think someone said it, Xbox is, definitely a gateway into simulation, for flying, especially with this simulator. And I think, if you like it and you want to get more into it, definitely go to the PC. I mean, it's just night and day difference. As you'll see in the stream, compared to my old videos, you'll see there's a whole different feeling of realism here. So I feel like it's definitely been a long time coming, and I feel like it's just sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do and just get in there and start doing it. So that's what I did. All right, so let's see. I think we got some good stuff. Obviously, we're in Copenhagen. Time now is, we are not live time, we're live weather. Obviously, we're going to be flying to Manchester. Flight time, air time, looks like we're going to be in the air for about an hour 54 minutes. Probably hit some headwinds along the way, so maybe a little bit more time, a little less time. But either way, it should be a really good flight. I think we got some decent weather. Might hit some turbulence on the way out, but I think all in all it should be pretty good. So let's go ahead and jump into the cockpit and get all set up. So obviously cold and dark cockpit. I got everything all set up. Let's go through our checklists real quick. Let's see. So parking brake is on. Flaps are in the up position. Spoilers are retracted, disarmed. Weather radar is off. Predictive wind shear is off. Engine masters 1 and 2 are in the off position. Engine mode selectors in the normal position. Thrust lever is idle. Gears in the down position, and wipers are both in the off position. So cockpit pre-flight checklist is complete. Let's go ahead to the cockpit preparation. We do not have any ground power available, so we're just going to go ahead and start with our batteries and start with APU for this startup. So let's go ahead and get that started. Battery 1, battery 2. We're going to get some lights going on here, but let's go ahead and start APU 1, or APU master. Let's go ahead and wait 3 seconds. APU start is on. I'm just sit and wait. At this point, let's go ahead and start plugging in our information to depart. Let's go ahead and import our flight plan. Obviously, it's going to say the time isn't matching, obviously, because we're not in live time. I didn't really want to fly into the night, but in other streams I could. I just figured I wanted you guys just to see, you know, kind of, you know, all the scenery in the daytime. We're obviously in the morning right now, so current time is 9:07. So we got our Kastrup, Copenhagen to Manchester. And let's go ahead and let's go ahead and wait for the APU to start before we start everything else, making sure everything's all on and correct. But yeah, I mean, I'm obviously using a add-on for Copenhagen. I'm also using add-on for Manchester, so you can see like the airport looks really nice. I'm also running a free AI traffic program, FSTL, which is really good. Just looks like we got everything's looking good. It's going to go through its self-tests in a moment. Let's go ahead and get crew supply on. CVR test. Ding. And let's go get the aviators set, get the gyros spinning. Exterior lights set, nav and logo set on. No smoking can come to auto. Emergency exit lights can be armed. And I'm just gonna let the Airbus do its thing real quick. Fish Guns says, what GPU, CPU are you running? So currently I'm running AMD. I have an AMD Ryzen 5, or sorry, AMD Ryzen 7 5700X for my CPU, and the GPU I'm running a MSI GeForce 3070. And I've just been having really great luck with all that. It's been I haven't had any issues. I've played other games on my PC and it seems to work really well. And I'm also running, you know, 32 gigabytes of RAM, which really helps for faster loads and stuff like that. But I've had nothing but great performances. I run my flight simulator at 30 FPS. I have run it at 60, but I've noticed that the performance runs a little bit better at 30 FPS. I just like it, you know, it definitely helps reduce the load and the stress on the CPU and the GPU. Honestly, I run temperatures in like the 40s to 50s when I'm in these pretty big airports. I do spike into the 60 degrees in really heavy loads, but I'm mainly flying and playing the sim in around 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, which is quite impressive. Let's see, Grazza says it's been a while. It has been a while. I said in the beginning, yeah, it's been a long time since I've, you know, it's been a long time since I've been in the sim. Well, I have been playing, but actually, you know, streaming. It's been a while. So let's see. AP is available. Let's go and get AP bleed on. Exterior lights are on. Emergency probe. Don't need any of that. Fuel pumps we can turn off. And yeah, also, yeah, this is a great add-on from Fenix. I'm obviously in the Fenix A320. This thing is just absolutely amazing. So this is the type of stuff I'm talking about, you know, the level of detail you can really get. I've seen videos of people, you know, of pilots flying the A320, and I've studied them, and I've seen what the operations that they do, and it's just absolutely incredible, the detail. And the price point for this is not, for what you get is absolutely amazing. I do fly the PMDG 737 variants every now and then, but I don't know, just something about the Airbus. I just always have liked Airbus. I've been on Airbus a lot, and I just find that their systems, the VNav, everything in it just works perfectly. I've never had any issues in the Airbus. I've had lots of issues in the Boeing, but the Boeing is a whole other beast entirely. The CPU cooler, I'm using a Redux cooler. It's like a really well reviewed CPU cooler. It's just a really big fan, but that thing keeps my CPU pretty cool. So once I find more, I have to look into my specs, and I can start listing them in my description and stuff like that, so you guys can see what I'm rolling with. So you guys, if you want to upgrade eventually to it, I definitely recommend the set that I have. I've been having nothing but flawless gameplay. Yeah, I feel like AMD was the route that I wanted to go down on. I just feel like it just worked really well. Okay, so we got that. Let's go ahead, and even though the APU is running, just make sure everything's working correctly. Let's go through our tests. Engine 1 test. Engine 2 fire test. Looks good. Alright, so I think we're all set. Let's go ahead and let's get some lights on here. Right, there we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and start plugging in our information. See, go to flight init. Go ahead and upload our flight for today. Yeah, I feel like the PC parts, I jumped on the gun when I did for buying a PC because everything was just so cheap. Because I think especially the 30 series graphics cards are a little bit on the lower side, because obviously the 40 series have come out, and if you have a 40 series card, good for you. But I'm just like that. It's just I've seen the prices on those things, and it's just absolutely insane. But I mean, supposedly the performance is really good. But I mean, I think a 3070. It's been working fine for me. I usually play in 1440p. I'm streaming in 1080 right now. Well, I'm streaming in 720, but the sim I'm running is in 1080. And I feel like 1080 is just perfect for me. Usually when I'm not streaming, I'll play in about 1440p, and I feel like the sim looks great. Even in 1080p, I'm blown away. It's amazing. And I'll make another video too on my graphic settings for the sim as well. That'll be a whole other thing. Okay, so we got that set. Let's go ahead and start the flow. Let's go ahead and start the boarding. Let's go ahead and load aircraft. Let's go ahead for fast time. I'm not going to sit here for 30 minutes while that's boarding. Alright, so we're going to kind of breeze through this. So we're going to go through the Airbus flow. So data, don't really need to worry about this. We're going to go to init, plug in our info. I also love Fenix because you can just upload automatically your flight plan from SimBrief as well, which is amazing. So it plugs in everything. So just so you guys can see the flight plan that I'm using. I am using the easyJet LFP. So let's see, our flight number is going to be, what is it, U2495. U2495. Put that in. Cost index for our flight today is going to be 56. And the cruising level, we're going to be at 360, which is perfect. Go ahead and go 360 for our flight level. And, whoops. Go to the wind, get our wind request. Yeah, for going for my first PC, I think NVIDIA was the one that I think a lot of people were going with. So I feel like the set that I have right now is. I'll have to find the person that I found the information from. It's a PC tech guy on YouTube, and he was talking about really good builds for PC, PC for flight simming, and it gave you a good range if you want to have like a decent setup, a medium to high-end PC, and then an ultra high-end PCs. And I think I went towards the like medium to high-end just because it was just in a better price point, and it's worked out. So I'll have to find. I can't remember the guy's name, but he deserves a lot of recognition for helping people starting out on what he was doing. Yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that video, to be honest. It had everything laid out, and I did a lot of research, and building it for the first time was a very interesting process, but it was actually very easy. I just built it all myself, got all the parts. Took me a couple of days to get everything up and running, but after that I was all set. Getting all the add-ons and stuff like that for Flight Simulator was just over time. I wanted to make sure I'm in a good position now. I'm also running FSS Realistic Pro to get more of a realistic, so you can hear the sounds in the cockpit, better, you know, you can, I'll say it's amazing. That you do have to pay for. I try to get a lot of free add-ons, but that one was worth buying. So let's go here. So we go to flight plan. We're going to be, so we went from init pages sets. We go from diff strip, which is the Airbus flow, so data, init, flight plan. So we're going to go to our departure, put a fix info, whoops, so we're at Echo, Kilo, Charlie, Hotel. Put a radius of 10. You never know, you have to return back to the airport. I like to have a 10-mile radius of where I'm at, just so it gives me a better indication of when to start setting my approach preparations. So today we are going to be departing off of runway 04 right, and we're going to be taking the Lango to a SID. This one says 1A, it's pretty much the same thing. Let's go ahead and insert that. How do you link your SimBrief data to the plane? On the EFB, there is a, if you go to the settings tab, you can link your your pilot ID, which is a number. So when you make your flight plan on the main SimBrief, if you look, it'll say user ID. You can also go to your settings in your profile, I believe, and it'll show your ID. And all you do is you just type in your ID, and it just automatically uploads everything. And that's why I like flying the Fenix more than the Boeing, because the Boeing doesn't have the EFB yet, but they say that they are going to be adding it eventually, so I'll have to check that out once they start adding that in. So I think we're all set here. Let's go make sure it's no discontinuities. Let's go ahead here and set up our arrival. And we can set up the arrival mid-flight. I think we're fine right now. But let's go ahead and go to Navigraph. I also have a Navigraph subscription too, and this thing is I couldn't be flying without this. And this just kind of works on the same premise. Once you log in, it asks, once you create a Navigraph account, it'll ask you to connect your thing, connect your accounts together, and that's what I did. So now it'll import my route from SimBrief, and it's amazing how it's all connected. For my name, anything works really. Flight Sim Pilot or Sim Pilot Spud, either works, or just Spud for short. I'm fine with anything, honestly. So let's go ahead and go to our ground charts, airport, so we can see our taxi route. Looks like we're going to be doing, so if we're on 04 right, that's for our departing runway. Let's go ahead and star this, so I don't have to keep looking for it. So we are at Terminal 2, I believe. So we can take Alpha to Charlie, and then from Charlie to Bravo, and then to Bravo 1. That's going to be our taxi route. So basically just a nice, very simple. So I think I'm fine with that. Also, let's go ahead and go to our departure and find the Lango to a, why is it going up there? Lango 2A, here we go. Let's take a look at our, so let's see what we got. Alright, so let's see, transition altitude is 5,000. And we can, so after takeoff, remain on tower frequency until 1,000. Then contact cache of departure. Radar vectoring will normally provided by cache of departure to expedite outbound traffic. When instructed for lineup, squawk assign SSR codes. SIDs include noise ambient procedures. Strict adherence during initial climb out is mandatory. So this one is a very, so we're done boarding, so that's good. So we are very simple, no, very, you know, obviously we're not using ATC or not in FATSIM, so I'm not going to be really worried about this. If you look here, I want to go to a track extended runway. So very simple departure. I think we're going to set an altitude constraint of just 10,000 just to get to 10,000. I think that should be fine. And it's just a very simple straight out approach. It's very simple. I've taken off at some airports that are very, very interesting departures and arrivals. Fishgun said, have you tried VATSIM yet? I have not. That is something I would look to in the future once I get more comfortable with airline procedures and also just procedures in general. I have a good knowledge of communicating with air traffic control just from videos I've seen and just from, getting into everything I have seen. I think I would be okay. It's just when stuff really starts to get going, it's just making sure you keep up, because I don't want to be those people, where your air traffic controllers are trying to be very realistic and then you're all over the place. So, but I will eventually get into that. I have been looking at some videos. Eventually, I'd say once I get a little bit more comfortable with the language, the vocab, and just the general IFR flight plans and stuff like that, I think I would definitely try that out, because I think that would be the ultimate simulation right there. I really want to try that. So, but eventually I will. I think I'll definitely get into that once I'm more comfortable. Manchester, once we're in the air, we'll start looking at our arrival approach plates and all that stuff. So, boarding is complete. We can now start plugging in our performance figures. Everything is still looking good up top. We can start turning the air overside, since it is pretty cold in Copenhagen. Everything's looking good. Let's go ahead and set up our inlet B. Block fuel today is 8.1. And we're going to get the zero fuel weight, so let's go ahead and go back to our mass and balance. So zero fuel weight is 58. I might just do 59.0, round up. Whoops, 59.0 / 31.7. Go ahead and plug that in. It's going to give us our fuel prediction, which is very important for landing performances. So airtime looks like we're about to be flying for 1 hour and 29 minutes. Also, I didn't check the head, if we have a headwind or tailwind for our main flight. We do have a headwind of 74, so that might slow us down a little bit, but I think we should be okay. Now it's time for our performance here. So we're taking off 04 right, runway surface is dry, force toga is no, flap configurations is optimum. We're going to do a PAX on departure since we don't really need a lot of performance to take off. We have a very long runway. Onto the QNH is 1014. It's almost standard. Get that set up. So we got 1014. And let's go ahead and calculate our performance, see what we're looking at here. So V1's 150, VR is 150, our V2 speed is 151. So make sure 150, 150, 151. And 151. Trans altitude is 5,000, which is correctly set. We're doing a flaps 1 departure with a down trim of 0.2. Let's go down 0.2. And our flex to temp is 63 degrees. Alright, looking good. Let's make sure everything else is all set. So now that the displays are set, we are aligned. We can set up our EFIS. Constraints on. VORs set on the captain and first officer side. We're in arc mode, 10 nautical mile range. Flight directors are armed. Everything is looking good. We have company message, which is our load sheet. So let's go ahead and confirm the load sheet or accept it. And let's go to load sheet. Compliance, everything's looking good. So go ahead and accept our load sheet for our flight. Everything's looking good. Looks like we're on track. Let's go ahead and set our outbound altitude. Everything is all set. Everything is armed. We're looking good. Also, I am using a free to download livery for easyJet, and it comes with a really nice like interior as well. easyJet livery inside, which is really nice. I like that. Alright, I think we are ready for pushback. Everything looks all set. AP masters on, MCDU weights are inserted, MCDU takeoff performance is checked, V speeds are checked, APU bleed is on, external power is off, seatbelt signs are on, air conditioning as required, which it is. I think we are ready to start. And let's go ahead and start our beacon light on. Windows are locked and secured. Go ahead and lock the cockpit door. Cockpit door is locked. Transponder set to auto. So I got notifications going on. And George says I'm flying the A320 to Rovaniemi. Where is that located? Never heard of that. But I just love Airbus. I love the A320. I just can't wait. Also, Aerosoft is going to be coming out with their A330, which I'm going to be really excited about. I've always wanted to get my hands on a really decent A330. Everything is checked. We are all set. Let's go ahead and call for pushback. So, transponder's on auto, TCAS is on standby. Let's go ahead and call for pushback. Let's tune the ground here. And let's go ahead and look it outside. We got Swiss. Looks like an A220. That would be a really fun one too to have, an A220. Or is that an Embraer? If I'm not mistaken, I believe that is an Airbus A220. Alright, we're all set. And let's go ahead and have our airport chart ready so we can see where we're taxiing to. So start. Airport charts. I love how it actually shows you on the map, which is amazing. Also, you can also draw on the map. So if you're getting instructions from ATC, you can also draw on the map, which is really cool. So we're going to be doing coming through here, all the way down to Bravo, and to Bravo 1. Follow a nice, simple path. And if you need to erase it, just go ahead and erase it. Which I think is amazing. I haven't really utilized it just since I just follow the map icon of the plane that I'm in, but it is cool to have that. So let's go ahead and go back, and we are ready for pushback. Let's go ahead and get rolling. Really nice weather going on here, not too bad. Might get some turbulence on the way out, but I think we should be okay. So we are connected. Go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and disconnect our parking brake. So you can get pushback and line up over here. It's going to be an interesting pushback. Let's see if we can start pushback to the right here. Let's go ahead and dim the cabin lights. To cabin lights, RA call out. Set those. Okay. I think we're going to stop here, otherwise we're going to be heading over. Alright, parking brake set. Let's go ahead and start our engines in sequence. And let's go ahead and go for engine 1. N1 are rising, oil pressure's looking good. Hear those PTUs starting up as well, hydraulic. Love those sounds. Alright, let's go ahead and monitor everything here. Wait for the avail. Once we have avail, go ahead and start engine master 2. The avail is ready, engine master 2 is armed. Everything's looking good. We have a positive N1 rising. Pressure's looking good. Everything's looking nice. Just gotta wait for the avail, and we are ready to start our taxi. Actually, as we get all our performance things set, we'll be able to go. Wait for the avail and go ahead and switch back to normal. Packs flowing again. Bail is set. Alright. Engine select here is normal. APU bleed is off. APU master switch is off. Let's go to our other checklist. Before taxi, auto brake set to max. Spoilers are armed. Flaps set to 1. Remember, go back to our performance. Flaps 1 with a down trim of 2. Let's go ahead and start our flight control check. So elevators is checked, neutral, down, neutral. Go full right, set, neutral, and let's go full left, and neutral. Order full right, neutral, order full left, neutral. Flight controls are checked, and our down trim was 2, so let's go ahead and go 1 and 2. Down trim is set. Pitch trim is percentage checked. Alright, I think we are set on that. And let's go ahead and turn on nose light to taxi. Runway turn off lights are set. Runway, yep, set. Strobes automatic. Parking brake is released. Takeoff configuration should be normal, no blue. You're set. Some engine power here. Now we're just following our route to the taxi. Let's check our left. All set. About to be crossing the runway, so let's double check. No one's landing, no one's taking off. Everything's set. It's checked. And we're basically just going to continue down Charlie. And then Charlie to Bravo. Space is going to cruise down here until we hit Bravo. Make sure everything else is set. Go ahead and turn off that. Add a little bit more floodlights here. I also hope everyone's having a good holiday season. I know it's the 24th. I was like, I've just been busy with work, but I think today was a good day just to get a quick flight going out. So I hope everyone's enjoying their time. Yeah, looks like we are about to hit Bravo. To Bravo 1 and we'll be all set. Shane Roberts says, having trouble with landing still, I can never land smoothly. It is definitely, it depends on what you're talking about for this plane in particular or just landing in general. I know with the Fenix, this one is kind of a tricky one to land. Sometimes I've had a little bit of problems in the past, but I think I've been getting better. It's all about very finesse. You know, don't want to overcorrect yourself too much, especially in this type of plane. I've noticed that, you know, the plane will generally just, since it has also the fly-by-wire system in it, it kind of has a nice tendency to kind of just very easily handling. I noticed that the Boeing, the PMDG 737, that actually has a very smooth landing. I've always gotten very smooth landings in this. This one in particular, when I first started using it, I was slamming on the ground real hard. But recently I've been able to get a pretty good handle on it. There's just very little techniques. It's just practice makes perfect, honestly. And as you see, it's all about very light flare before you touch down, very light movements. To think of obviously if there's a lot of strong weather, that's going to be, you know, going to have to deal with that. But I found it's just very simple adjustments are what's going to make it better for you. But it's just practice makes perfect. Obviously, you know, it's pilots spend months and months in simulators trying to perfect their landings. It only comes with, you know, the more you practice. Also making sure that your speeds are correct, you're using the correct flaps, making sure that everything is all set. You know, that's why the fuel prediction and entering the correct numbers is very important too, so you don't land too heavy. It's just all these different factors added to your landing performances. I've had some good landings. I've also had some pretty bad ones too. But it's just all about the more you fly, the more you do, you know, the better you learn. You learn as you go. But it can be pretty tricky. So, but I feel like most of the times I've had in this plane have been, over the time I've learned that, you know, it's just very small movements, very light on the stick back for your flare, because the plane already kind of comes in at a flare angle anyway if you're coming in as ILS approach. So if you start pulling back too much, you can cause a float, and if you start pushing forward, this plane has a tendency to dive down really quickly. So everything is all set, we're looking good. We're about to turn on to Bravo 1 in a second, so let's go ahead and get prepared for our takeoff. So let's go ahead and start turning on our lights to all. Landing lights are set. Exterior lights are on, nose wheel lights are set to take off. Go ahead and set our TCAS to on as well. We set it to TARA. Go ahead and make sure everything's looking good. go ahead, hold short. Cabin crew is notified. Exterior lights are on. Nose wheel takeoff are set. Nose wheel lights are set to takeoff. Anti-ice, we don't need it. Packs are on. TCAS set to TARA. TCAS is set where the radar doesn't work. Predictive wind shear come on. Takeoff memo no blue. Before takeoff, checklist complete. Let's go ahead and start rolling on to the runway here. And as soon as we line up, we'll start the clock. And go ahead and start the clock now. We'll do it pretty much almost a rolling takeoff. Runway is checked. We're on 04 right, which is our takeoff runway, so that's verified. Go ahead and hold short for a second. Alright, everything's set. We are ready to roll. And we're going to go ahead and set our engines to 50%. Hold the toe brakes. Increase to 50. Monitor the N1s, make sure they're stable. Engines are stable, release toe brakes. Let's go ahead for flex. We got men flex 63 SRS for runway, auto thrust blue. 80 knots checked. 100 knots. Rotate. Positive rate of climb, gears up. Getting some slight crosswinds on departure here. Flight directors at the moment, still hand flying it. Now let's go to thrust lever climb. Climb detent. Thrust is set. Auto throttle is now white. And let's go ahead and arm autopilot 1. Wait till we pass our... Let's start setting up our flaps after we pass. Everything's still looking good. Engines are all normal. Alright, we can go ahead and go flaps up. And after takeoff checklist, our gear is retracted, flaps are retracted, spoilers are now disarmed, thrust is set to climb detent, autopilot is armed. Nose wheel lights off. Runway lights are off. After takeoff checklist complete. Alright, let's get some good views out of here. Beautiful morning sunrise. Obviously not real time, but I just wanted to get a really nice view on our departure here. Get a good look at the flight model there, it looks amazing. CFM 56 sounds. And we are past our transition altitude. Go ahead and go to standard. Alright. Once we are above 10,000, we go ahead and retract landing lights and leaving lights. Seatbelt signs are still armed. Might be hitting a little bit of turbulence here in a second. go ahead and track our departure. Go back to this. So we reached our 10,000 feet. We'll reach it at this waypoint. Go ahead and start expanding this. To reach 10,000. Let's go ahead and go to our cruising flight level, which is 360. Alright, we can turn landing lights are off, wing lights are off, and now we're just monitoring our climb. Still going to leave the seatbelt signs on until we're a little bit above the clouds, a little bit more, so we don't hit any sudden turbulence. Look at that. And obviously I do like to fly Airbus a lot, especially in my, on the Xbox sim. That was pretty much all we had as a decent airliner, so I just kind of got used to Airbus. But if you guys want to start seeing more, I do have other planes in my inventory. I do have the A330. I also have the A320NX from Fly-by-Wire, the A3, which is basically the A320 Neo. But I don't know, the way that Fenix has set this up, it's just everything works 100%, and I just love the way that it feels. The Boeing, obviously I do know how to fly it, I've flown it many times, but if you guys want to see more, I could do, definitely some flights in the Boeing, which is fine by me. So if you guys would like to see more, I can definitely start to get more. And then obviously coming into next year, I believe there's going to be even more. The easyJets are going to be finally coming in, the Embraer, I think the 170, 175, which would be really nice. And then we've got the Aerosoft A330, which is going to be coming. So I'm really looking forward to that. Let's go ahead and expand this a little bit more. Turn our terrain radar just to see. Everything's looking good, still on our correct checklists. Mir says, is it on PC? Yes, I'm currently streaming on PC, so I have moved over from Xbox to PC now. It's just stuff. I mean, Xbox, I will give it its props. It has done, it got me to where I am now, and I wouldn't have been where I am now if I hadn't started there, and you guys were there with me when I was on there, so, I humble beginnings, obviously. But my love for aviation is just too much, to the point where it's like I need to fly these type of planes and get really in depth and really immersed into these airliners. And I've learned so much more coming over to PC about these planes that I thought I knew a lot about them, but I obviously didn't. And I'm still learning, obviously. No CRJ love. I was thinking about getting the CRJ. I do like the CRJ. I was waiting for that plane to come over on Xbox. They were teasing it for the longest time, and I thought, okay, the day's gonna come, but it just never made it. So, but I do have it in my wish list. I definitely will. I think I'll give it a shot. I know it's a very different flight system. It looks very interesting. I remember back on the FSX days, CRJ was one of my favorites to fly for some reason. I don't know why, I just loved flying it. I definitely will give it a shot. I know Aerosoft does a pretty good job, and I know that plane has definitely had some really good reviews on it, so I think eventually I'll move over to that. More reason to learn new planes, learn some new things. But I do know, as living in America, the CRJ has been being pushed out of service a little bit. I think they've been favoriting, especially American Airlines, Alaska, Delta, all those like SkyWest, American Eagle, and Delta connections. They've been favoriting more towards the Embraer planes, which makes sense. So I've been seeing a lot of those in the sky. CRJs, when I see them, are very rare, but I know back in its time, it was a very important plane. And I know some people still fly. It's obviously still in service, obviously, but just not as much nowadays. I think it's just being pushed out by the E-jets. I know that Airbus is still. I think Airbus is still leading in a lot of ways. It's always interesting to see the preference between people who prefer Airbus, Boeing, or both. I tend to have I flip between it. You know, Boeing. I do love the 777. I just love that airliner. 787, which is good. It's just in the sim. It's just we don't really have anything like that. I know PMDG is coming out with their 777 and 747, so that will be interesting to see. So I think that's why I think this, the next year, coming into next year, we're definitely going to see a lot of great airliners coming in. I think it's safe to say, I'm really not sure when something seatbelt signs come off now. Check the temperature in the cabin. I have it set a little bit warmer, so I think that should be fine. Everything's looking good. Everything's normal. And I also have I like flying the Fenix jets, the A320. I do have it set to realistic failures, and it's on random. So I've only encountered one failure, and that was an engine startup. One of the engines wasn't starting up correctly. It was taking too long to start up, so I had to restart the engine procedures. So I kind of like that little added touch of realism they kind of added. I know the Boeing has it too. I believe the PMDG have had it, but I don't know. I just feel like I've just been the PMDG 737 was having some issues a couple months ago, and every time I was flying it, it would just nosedive on final. I'd be like at about 500 feet right before I touched down, and all of a sudden the plane just starts just nosediving to the ground. And I've flown the 737 quite a lot in this, and I've done many successful landings, many successful takeoffs. Everything's been working fine with it, but for some reason that one was just, I know they fixed it. I did fly it recently and everything worked 100%, but it left a really bad taste in my mouth. And it just, Fenix, when they have problems, they come out with updates so fast, and I just love the Fenix team. And I'm looking forward to when they come out with the IAE engines, and I think they're coming out with the sharklet options as well, which is going to be really cool. So there's going to be more kind of customization on that, because I know there's a lot of airlines that I want to fly in Europe that don't currently operate the A320-214 model specifically, and they don't operate the CFM56s. But so far, I've been enjoying it. The Fenix has just gotten better as it's been out. They just keep raising the bar for flight simulation, which is great. Looks like we're still cruising pretty good. Once we start getting closer to United Kingdom, we'll start setting up our arrival. So we started setting up the landing. I still haven't inserted all that stuff in just yet, but once we get closer, I'll start inserting all that information in, setting up for arrival. Start setting up. We're still technically on the departure. All cloudy down below. Doesn't get much better than that. And I know X-Plane. Looks pretty promising too. From the stuff that I've seen, but I just doesn't really seem like I want to move over to that realm. I know X-Plane 11 definitely had the advantage over Flight Simulator X or 10 back in the day, but ever since this came out, it's just completely blown everything out of the water. Graphics. You can argue that the flight dynamics is better in X-Plane. It has more of a true feel of, it feels like you're actually flying. It has more realistic flight characteristics. But just from what I've seen, it just still seems outdated. I just don't know what it is. I mean, I like the fact that their default is the A330. Asobo has kind of lacked on their default planes a lot. I know they're updating them eventually. I think they came out with an avionics update recently, or it is coming out. But I just don't think you can really compare with this simulator, just how it looks and how it runs and how it feels. And it's just they optimize the. I feel like it's just very optimized for basically any type of PC, which is really good because not everyone can afford a $2,000, $3,000 setup. But I think nowadays you can get a pretty decent setup for a low cost, and that's why I recommend if you're still on Xbox. I definitely recommend moving on up. It'll definitely change your whole perspective, especially with all these different, it's just the level of detail. You have everything in here. You got your engine bleed pressurization, like electricals, hydraulics, fuel. It's like everything is in here. Conditioning, the doors, everything. So, also a fully working circuit breaker. Not fully, I shouldn't say that, but better than the defaults. It has working blinders. You can take those off. You can really kind of customize it the way you want it. Oxygen masks. It has absolutely incredible what you can get. I know that someone just came with the A310 for the console, but which is nice. I mean, I think it's a good step in the right. I think they're heading in the right direction, but after flying the default A320 and then jumping to this, it's like two different airplanes. The fact that this has working VNav is just, can't. Once you've flown with it, you can't fly without it. I know the A320X doesn't. They did have it for a little bit, and I think the experimental has it, I believe. But recently they've just, I think they've got rid of it. And I do like the A320X. It's a free add-on, which is incredible what they've done for the simulator. But just VNav is just so much easier. It takes a lot of the workload, especially since I'm the only one flying. It just makes the workload a lot easier. One thing I would like to see in this, though, is kind of back in the FSX days where you could have a co-pilot with you. They have that. Game-changing. I think it would just be the best thing that they come out with. I'd love to have someone fly, and have a co-pilot. They could monitor systems and kind of have like an actual flight crew. I think that'd be an amazing step forward. They said they're looking into it, but that's going to be a. I can only imagine the amount of effort that would take, but everything takes time. I feel like the sim has definitely grown a lot since the day it's come out, and it seems to be getting better. And also, I do fly kind of in Europe and the United States. I do different flights from there, but recently I've just been flying in Europe for the most part. I've just been trying. Most of my airport add-ons are actually in Europe. I have a lot more. I just spend a lot more time flying between the different countries. I just love the views. I love the Airbus definitely dominates the industry in Europe for obvious reasons. So I feel like there's a lot more realistic airlines that use this specific model. In America, they tend to go more for Boeing. There definitely are Airbuses for sure, but a lot of them seem to operate the A321s. A320s aren't as common from what I've seen. There's definitely a lot, but when you look at the numbers, A321s definitely dominate the market over there, especially with American Airlines. Their whole fleet is pretty much all A321s I've seen for the most part. Um, so it's I feel like if Fenix can come out with an A321 and A319, I think they would just be game over at that point. I wouldn't be flying anything else except the Boeing. That'd be the only other plane I'd be flying. I also would love to fly the Embraers because that's a very I see them flying all the time here. They're very popular in America. They fly a lot of the smaller connecting flights between pretty much everywhere I've seen them. They're very popular here. And also the Embraer, I've heard, is just a very easy plane to operate. It's very easy to fix and maintain. So we'll see the level of realism that they're going to add to it. So I'll be looking forward to that. But I'm so stoked for the A330 from Aerosoft. I cannot wait. I've been on an A330s a lot in my life, like in real life. I've been on them quite a lot, so I know I've always felt comfortable in them. I've always felt more comfortable. Not comfortable, but again, get into that whole debate of Airbus versus Boeing in terms of safety, and I will see all the videos I've seen on air crashes and just failures have been, a large majority of them have been Boeing. Airbus, I think, has a good safety record. I've seen forums, they say they both have really good safety records if they have to, but I just, something about Airbus, and I've even seen, you know, if anyone who watches my videos or streams who is an actual pilot and who has actually flown Airbus or Boeing, I'd love to hear their input of which one they prefer to fly, because I've actually looked up some forums of like which pilots prefer to fly, and a large number of them have said Airbus in terms of comfortability, procedures, everything in that regard. But Boeing stands out as the one that pilots say makes you feel like you're actually flying a plane. You have more control over it, which I kind of agree, because the checklists on the Boeing 737 that I have is way more in depth than the Airbus. Way more buttons to switch on, a lot more, it feels like more analog compared to digital, which seems to be more the Airbus flow. But Airbus has also changed how aviation is when they came up with the A310, the first glass cockpit, and only having a 2-man flight crew in the cockpit. So Airbus definitely is leading the way with a lot of things, but also Boeing does have some pretty good. Boeing has been around a lot longer, but it's always preference, you know. If you love aviation, you have a love for all airlines, but secretly I think I am an Airbus person myself. I just know something about it. I flying this Airbus, I just love it. I would love to fly the different variations though, like more. I know you can buy on the marketplace. I think LVFR, if I'm not mistaken, has the A321 and the A319. But it uses the default systems as the default A320. So it's not 100% as, but you can't get, if you're on PC, you can always get I know there's compatibility mods with the A32NX from fly-by-wire, which would be the best way to go. But then it goes back to that thing, it's just like, I started off with the A32NX when I got the PC, and I thought it was amazing. Huge step forward, for sure, compared to the Xbox A320 Neo, or just the default A32 Neo, so... I know the engine variations for the Fenix A320 are going to be coming out soon. I think it's just because the main developer for the engines is based in Ukraine, so the process is kind of slowed down a bit. It seems like from the post that I read, it seems like they're heading in a good direction, and I'm still happy just flying this. It looks like we are now in our cruise phase. Let's go ahead, and everything's still looking good. Engines are operating normally. Everything's looking good. Once we get closer, we will start setting up our arrival. Once you start getting close to over water, you can start setting up everything. Just get ready for to start setting up. Obviously this is the boring phase of the flight because nothing's really going on. now that I'm just glad that, you know, I can stream on YouTube, you know, reach a bigger core of my audience, because I know a lot of you are on YouTube. I started on Twitch just to kind of get going, and I would use Twitch as a recording solution. But now since I have the PC, I can stream directly from OBS into YouTube, which is currently what I'm doing. And it's just been great. So it's great. Now I can do longer flights. I can interact with you guys a little bit more one-on-one, which is always a nice thing. So, you know, I get a lot of comments on my videos and stuff. It's just like, I'd love to just, you know, have you guys in the air with me when I'm flying, so you guys can ask questions and just see how I operate things, or get info, or get, you know, basically anything, honestly. It just makes it a lot more enjoyable. Makes me want to fly to longer destinations. I think the longest flight I've ever done in the sim was from, I think I did from Nice to Athens, and that was a beautiful flight as well. The approach into Athens was amazing, and I have the, I've got airport scenery for Athens as well. Flying there was actually really beautiful, so I'll be definitely flying all, you know, different regions for sure, but my main hub is like obviously, you know, Europe and United States. Thought about doing some maybe Canadian flights from like the East Coast into Canada, but I'm just very comfortable, you know, flying here. It's something that I can just fly. I, you know, just love all the European airlines, even all the different American airlines that they have. But if you guys have any suggestions, I definitely would love to see. You know, I think a large portion of my fan base seems to be in Europe anyway, so that's why I like, you know, like flying in Europe, so you guys can see some places and see some routes that you guys have been on. Also, flying in America, I'm very comfortable with in person, because I've flown a lot of routes in America, so I know those routes very well. I know the correct, you know, procedures that they do, where the airliners go. Let's see, we have a company message, probably seeing that we're delayed, because technically flying, it's not real time, but this flight plan is on real time. So I think this is what this is talking about. Yeah, so obviously that's not, this wouldn't be, obviously if we were delayed, that would be accurate, but since I'm not flying in real time, it's going to pop up. But so it's cool to see you get company messages as well. We're cruising, everything's still looking good. Also, the level of detail in this is amazing. Brings you back of all the memories of being on the old Airbuses, all these old looking seats and everything. They did a really good job. And also the signs illuminate correctly too, so if I turn on the fasten seatbelt sign, it'll illuminate here, which I think is a really nice touch. Still in the cruise phase. You know, there's the part where you just have to sit back and just not do much, just make sure everything's working correctly. also, one thing will like is the landing performances on this is really nice too. I like how they added the specific calculator to calculate, you know, your stopping distance and what you need to, what's required to stop. Whether you need to go on low to medium auto brake. Obviously, never land on max auto brake. I'm not sure what the actual procedures are for that. I just don't think it's. I don't think you can. Could be wrong, but I've never seen someone do that. Really wish the weather radar actually worked in this, because you can flick it on, but it never. And I've flown into some pretty bad weather, and it never seems to. Obviously, you can change the game here, but I've just never. I just don't know what's Sobo is. Sobo just doesn't seem to. I know they do have a working. I've seen it, but for some reason it just doesn't seem to. I don't know what it is. I would really like it because it's part of the. It would be nice to see what I'm flying into. If there is really bad weather, but. Just have to wait and see. I think it's a good time. I think we could set up our arrival so you guys can see the arrival. Let's go ahead and pull up our destination. Actually, first thing we'll do is set a fixed waypoint. Let's go to the next one. So we're going to Echo Golf Charlie Charlie. Do a radius of 10. Really helps me kind of set up my landings a little bit better. Alright, so let's go ahead and go on our arrival. Our arrival is going to be on ILS. Let's go ahead and see. So just so you guys can see as well. I have an external thing that I can look at my flight plan, but I want you guys to see what I'm looking at. So we're going to be using the hotbed 1M arrival on 23 right. So let's go ahead and go back. So ILS 23 right. Let's go ahead and find hotbed, which is right here. Plug that in. Now it's going to calculate, and we might see a top of descent marker, which we do. This might start adjusting once it starts collecting information. Fuel, stuff like that. It should move around, or it might just stay there. So it's just chilling there, just perfect. So that's one thing I love about this. It gives you like accurate, like also this is what the real Airbus uses, so it has like the correct VNAV settings. So this is your top of descent marker, so this will tell you when to actually start descending. And as we take a look at our chart, or we can take a look at constraints. I believe that flight level 170 is going to be our first major constraint. Obviously this one is, but we're going to be hitting that right before. So by the time we hit it, so we'll start a descent there. You can also check your its performance. So we still have 322 miles to go before we hit our top of descent. So almost there. The approach into Manchester that we're doing is going to be very interesting. So we're going to be coming in. On. Let's go ahead and start loading up our flight plan. Manchester. Go ahead to arrival and look for the hotbed. Here, it's going to be interesting. So we're going to be obviously coming in this approach right here. There's that constraint flight level 170. As we come in here, we're going to loop on Bernie and then loop back around to Rosen. And then as we come in, we're going to fly in directly and then take a sharp right into 23 right. So it's a very interesting approach. I'm not too sure the reason behind it. If someone knows the Manchester procedures more than me, definitely let me know. But it's interesting how we have this little loop right here. I'm not sure if it's something to do with Liverpool's airspace or some of the other airspace. Liverpool's airport is right here, so they're very close to one another. Um, it's very interesting. So it's going to have us, we're going to loop around here. Should be good. Max speed, all typical ATC instructions. So that should be a pretty good arrival. And we're going to take a look at our approach plate here. And we're going to see we're at ILS 23 right, which is this one. This is another bug that I've noticed. The Fenix, I don't know what's going on with it. I've noticed that if you switch between day and night charts, it doesn't, it's like opposite. I don't know what it is. But it seems to like whatever thing you choose after selecting it tonight will always be on night, so just another little thing, but it's groundbreaking. Make sure we're still doing good. Yeah, it's looking good. So, go ahead and get a closer view here so you guys can see. Let's transition altitude is still 5,000. Everything's looking normal, so we're going to come in, join the localizer here at 3,500 feet. Poppy lights are going to be on the left side. Barrow is 449 minimums, so it's all looking pretty good. Very simple approach, nothing too crazy. Did I start this? I did. Perfect. I like doing the star because it kind of helps you navigate your menus a little bit better instead of just having to go through the whole list of everything. Get closer, we can request weather on the MCDU. This is a really cool feature too. I like it, but it's a little bit more realistic because obviously the EFBs won't have internet, so they can request weather through the MCDU, which is really cool. I like that. We can just go here and go to weather. Weather request. You can go just to check it out. It's obviously going to update. We'll have to update it again, but just so you guys can see. So it's a really cool feature. So you go E, Echo Golf Charlie Charlie, and send. It's going to send and go back to our received messages, and the weather should be coming to us in a second. So it's right there. And now it's going to give us the weather info. So not too much. Not too bad of a wind. Temperature is 8. QNH is 1003. It's pretty good weather to me. Oops. I really like that feature. So this would be more realistic what Airbus pilots would be doing. So they'll just request it through there. So I like that. Let's start to get into the estimated fuel on board. That's going to be very important as we're coming into our descent. We need to plug that in to get our landing, basically our landing performances. Still looking good. I'm trying to think of what the flight after this, what my next flight will be. I think if it's either somewhere else in Europe or another, somewhere in America as well. And I've also gotten more airport add-ons, and since I have the PC, you can get a little bit better add-ons that don't typically are supported on Xbox. So I have Burbank Airport, which is an airport that I've flown out of many times. That airport I know very well, and also LAX. I have the Any Builds version of that one, and that thing is an actual I think it's a workhorse of basically a testing of how good your PC can handle things if you get that add-on. So that one's been actually pretty good. I really like the airport. It's just the amount of details that goes into it is actually amazing. So. Views of where we're flying out over. Also, having the checklist for these planes is also a necessity too, because you don't want to be missing out on the wrong thing. Smooth flight so far, not much turbulence. We're getting a strong headwind, and that's the only downside is that we're going to be, kind of delayed. It's going to take a little more time to get where we need to go, but the approach will happen very soon. So all these buttons, like just the fact that everything is pretty much accessible and actually works is amazing too. Just love the fact, and also the cool, you can get your tray table too. I forgot about that, which is also really handy. Boeing will be able to do that since they have a yoke right here. Another advantage of having the, flying the Airbus. They also came out with an update too with the Fenix that even if I know in the default A320 with the wipers, if there's rain hitting the windshield, if you use the wipers, it actually moves away the water from the actual, like where it wipes like it would in real life. And I thought that was such a cool little thing. But I haven't really flown in much rainy weather recently, even though it's that time of year. Even though I just probably miss it, but I would like to fly in more, tougher types of weather to kind of get more of a, more icing conditions and stuff like that. I think I've only had to use my anti-ice once on a flight because I was flying into a storm. And it was below 10 degrees, obviously, so. I know easyJet is a very big hub in Manchester as well. I think I flew out of there a couple of times on the Xbox version, but the default airports are just I don't know, some are okay, but it's just some of them are just like, especially after you see it in person, you just can't really go back to it. I just like the add-ons that people have come up with, and it just makes it feel a little bit more realistic. So I love flying, and also the air traffic tool that I have, which is FSTL traffic, which is a free add-on that you can get through the fly-by-wire app, and it's free, and you can just automatically, it just runs through the fly-by-wire page, and it's just been, I think it's one of the best free, definitely one of the best, I think the best one at the moment for AI traffic. It just makes it a lot more realistic. Obviously the airspace is kind of quiet right now because technically airspace in Europe is, I'm obviously, different time zone and everything, so the air traffic is not as busy at the moment. If I was flying in America, air traffic would be really hectic right now. I also think I have the systems turned down on mine just to lower the, get better performance But I've noticed that even at these lower numbers, there's still a lot of traffic, so you don't need to worry about it too much. We're starting our descent in about 240 miles. Almost getting there. Starting our main turn, heading towards the UK in a second. Check our map real quick. We're still in mainland Europe at the moment. Also the fact that, also talking more about the plane, that the fact that it has all the realistic sounds. These chairs back and forth. It even has the exact sounds that the Airbus chairs have too. It's a shame you can't adjust this. I know on the Aerosoft they had a video where you can actually adjust the seats on the armrest right here. But this we can just push it back. Also, jump seat. It's really cool too. Also, the cockpit door can open. You have your monitor here. Circuit breakers, for the most part, that's about 50% of it works. So we're starting our main turn. Still one more last turn that we have to have, so now we're going to be heading out and then return one last time, and then our approach should be coming up pretty shortly after that. I think a lot of people, it's like, I'm always curious to see like if people prefer, when you're in the simulator, what's your favorite places to fly to? Do you have like one airport you have in particular that you usually fly to? I feel like mine for sure is definitely, I think LAX. I've departed out of that airport probably the most out of any of the airports in the sim. I think the closest one would be, the other one would be usually Dublin. I've flown out to Toulouse a lot. I recently got some more add-ons. I just got Copenhagen and Manchester for this video, and then obviously there's more places I want to fly. Definitely more parts in Europe for sure. I want to try like Vienna, like maybe Vienna to Athens would be a really nice flight. East Coast I've been thinking about, especially places in Florida, like Fort Lauderdale, Orlando. Because I know JetBlue flies to a lot of those locations, especially Fort Lauderdale. They have a very big hub there. So I could do always, Fort Lauderdale to New York, JFK, LaGuardia. Those are some really nice, interesting, but I know they're having really bad storms over there right now. So that would be another interesting video to do as well, a stream flying into that. But realistically, I think been grounded a lot of flights, the northeast of America. So, but it's always nice just to, you know, change it up a bit. I feel like I kind of have my certain favorite regions, certain airlines that I do like to fly, certain routes, for sure. Like obviously this is the first time for me. This is the first kind of trip that I've done this region. Well, not region to say, but first flight, like first time flying out of Denmark. I was gonna do a flight from Denmark in a previous video on the Xbox, but then I kind of scrapped it and just, I think I chose a different airport instead. But also I think, especially all these add-ons and especially all the European airlines, I have like, so many different options now that I can fly to, which is amazing. I just love the fact that I have those options. Still mainland Europe right now, should be turning up. Also, I would like to know if anyone's actually been on easyJet. I know I've mentioned that a few times in my older videos, but I've always been curious about easyJet. I know they're definitely one of the bigger airlines operating out of the UK. Pretty much most parts of Europe, honestly, because they have different region operators. I think they have like easyJet Swiss, easyJet Europe, and then the main easyJet, which is the one we're on, which is the UK-based one. Main airlines I like to fly, obviously, is easyJet. I love that. Aer Lingus, JetBlue, Spirit, and American and Delta. I think those are like my main ones in America. Especially in America, I do a lot of Delta, American, depending on where I'm flying to, because obviously certain airlines have different regions they like to fly to. JetBlue tends to fly a little bit on the West Coast, but their main hub is obviously, main routes are always on the East Coast, since it's East Coast airline. I've done some Lufthansa, which is really good, flying out of Frankfurt. I've done a lot of different flights, and there's always more that I want to try and just learn their operations and stuff like that. So I think it's just a very cool idea. You know, just the amount of stuff that you can do. And then with the more jets that are going to be coming out, especially with the E-jets, the Embraers, the A330, if I could do even more interesting flights of those. I'm still super excited for the Airbus and A330 to come out. I think it definitely, like I said, when that thing comes out, I'd love to do a flight from like LA to Hawaii. It's Hawaiian Airlines, because I know Hawaiian Airlines operates the A330-300, and the engines that come with it are the ones that the Hawaiian Airlines uses as well. So that'd be a really cool one that I'd love to do. Obviously, as we get closer, the weather's going to change probably by the time we even get there. So, but I wanted to show you guys how to do that weather request. But as we get closer to our top of descent, usually about 80. I start setting up my arrival about 80 to 40 nautical miles before I hit my top of descent, and that's usually when I get my performance figures set, and also the MCDU will actually tell you to start entering destination data at a certain point, so that's also a good indication. But I find like kind of tells you kind of too close to where you hit your top of descent, so things can kind of get missed, or you might be rushing, so I'd rather just take my time and make sure I get all the figures correct. And then also we'll be looking at our kg of fuel, kilograms of fuel. That will be very important into our estimated fuel on board. Very smooth weather so far, which is always a nice surprise flying in Europe, especially in the winter. Until we get some. I've yet to see the descent though, but from the winds, we can always check the winds too. If we go back to, actually we might have missed it. Actually no. Yeah, so winds. Obviously that headwind getting right now is pretty rough. That's slowing us down quite a bit. But I think for the most part, it's not looking too bad. And I am using FSS Realistic Pro, so that gives me more like kind of, you know, if we're hitting turbulence, it kind of reacts the same as if you were. So I like that kind of realism that it's added to it. So it kind of, you kind of feel the plane, and there's different sounds that I've added to it and stuff to kind of make it sound a little bit more alive. So I could probably turn integrity lights, get rid of those. Don't really need them anymore. Let's go over my checklists, make sure everything's all set. We're just monitoring the status of the flight. Not much you can really do at this point. Let's get one last turn here before we actually turn out. I'm just keeping an eye on the stream, making sure everything's looking good. And also, sort of, you know, also so happy that you guys are, you know, still supporting me, even though I was gone for quite a while. But I just, as I said many times, it was just getting to the point with the Xbox where it was just, we just couldn't handle it. And I think everyone else is in the same boat. And I know, like, Asobo's promised that they're going to come out with the WASM fix in the last update, but that didn't happen. So I think I just got to a point where I'm like, I would see other streamers that I follow on YouTube, and I just saw how the depth of what you could get, and I just had to go, and it was a big adventure for me just to, like, you know, get into that and start, you know, building a PC for the first time. I'd never even done it, didn't even know what I was doing, but eventually once I get my spec information of what exactly I'm using, I'll start linking those into the descriptions of my videos so you guys can see what I'm using, and hopefully it'll inspire you guys to kind of hop on over. I know the Xbox is good for what it is, don't get me wrong, it's actually incredible what it can actually do. But if you're just looking to casually fly and just kind of mess around and just enjoy it, it does do it pretty good, you know, especially with what it has to offer. I think it does. I think it definitely got me through. You know, it gave me a really good taste of, you know, aviation and stuff like that, and especially because years ago when I had FSX, it was good, but like I didn't really have much of a option to really get into it, since at the time the PC that I was using was just like a laptop, so it's like it was able to run it okay, and I was young enough to just kind of just have fun with it, just learn it, just enjoy that I was actually doing it. But you know, the fact that I can actually be able to do what I'm doing now and operating these study level planes and learning all the things that I can, I think it's definitely changed my whole like appreciation for it. I just think, you know, if you're really into it, I think the Xbox is it's a good gateway to get into, you know, kind of open up your, you know, ideas about getting into it. But PC has always been the one to lead the way with, you know, technology and the amount of stuff that you can do with it. And I think that, the support of you guys showed me that, you know, there's a big following of people who love aviation, so I might as well, you know, start getting into it more and trying to upload things that are better. And I think it's definitely a thing that I've been enjoying. Let's take a look inside so you can look at it. Detail down there. All the scenery looks great. Some nice views right here. Also these things, the visors also work, which is a really nice feature. You can activate this one, see if you get rid of that, and just pull them up. Looks like our top descent's going to be coming up pretty soon, so soon we'll be able to be landing pretty shortly. And the approach into Manchester looks very interesting too, so I'll be curious to fly into this one. Still looking good, our fuel is still looking really nice. Should have about an estimated 3.6. Yeah, 3.6 on our arrival, which is perfect. Also, the Fenix also has its own like type of rendering system. Like, so if I was using this, it has its own external app that has to run with Flight Simulator. And for this one, I use balanced. I don't use performance or quality. I just use balanced, kind of find it in between because I feel like it runs my PC seems to run just fine the way that it is. It doesn't run too hot. Everything runs the way it's supposed to. So it's definitely an experiment, you know. Every PC, you know, everyone has their own system, but I feel like you can kind of tailor it to what you need, which is really nice. As we get closer to the 80 nautical mile mark, we'll start setting up our weather and making sure we get everything. Or, I mean, obviously you could do it through that, which is more realistic, or you can also go through the flight pad. I can get the information this way. Do my flight, and then you can get the arrival weather that way. I can already tell that the QNH has changed and the temperature as well, so. But hey, it's up to everyone. I mean, that's what I love about this. You can do it any way you want, and also it actually has actual battery support too, which is really cool. I like that. Panel states, cold and dark, blah, blah. Some settings is what I have. I have all my RA callouts. You can also use the airline settings if you want a more realistic. You can use the airframe settings, what the actual airline uses. There's lots of like really nice in-depth simulation you can add to this. manuals. Also, I think I will do a video on my setup, on the settings that I use, so you guys can kind of gauge on what I'm using. If you're in the PC, Xbox, obviously, it's unfortunate you can't really adjust any settings unless they've changed something recently, but I haven't even been on the flight simulator for the Xbox, like, since like almost a year ago now. I think it was 8 months ago. But the system that I'm using, it's just been smoothest as possible, and everything has just worked the way it's supposed to. I just, you know, can't argue with how it's been working. Airports, flight plan, we're still on track. About 124 miles away from the top of descent. It's a final turn heading into the UK. Still very smooth, not very turbulent, which is always good. Here and there, little bumps here and there, but nothing too bad. I feel like everything's very smooth so far, which is good. Also, this add-on I got for free on flightsim.to. It's like the main, if you go to their liveries for the A320 for the Fenix, it's the most downloaded one, I believe, and they did a really good job. They kind of just made it look a little bit more, obviously, how it is in real life, and they made the textures on the plane. Well, I'm not sure they did anything with the textures, but just it looks better than the Fenix version. But the Fenix liveries that they've come out with, the default liveries, have looked really good, so I haven't had any complaints with those. A beautiful shot there. That's what it's all about. Airlines I want to try flying next, different regions. I think I definitely want to do some more, I definitely want to do Austria, Austrian Airlines from Vienna. I think I definitely would want to do Vienna to Athens. I think that'd be a good one, or just do some more small flights here and there. Definitely in the West Coast, or sorry, in America on the West Coast, there's a lot of nice little regional airports you can fly to, like big ones, like Burbank, Phoenix, San Francisco, Las Vegas. There's a lot of like really nice airports that you can fly to for really short haul flights, which is usually what I used to do in my old, in the videos I've done on the Xbox. But now since I'm streaming to you guys and stuff, I feel like I can do a little bit longer flights and interact with you guys, and I feel like it's a little bit more enjoyable than, you know, before I used to record a video, because I was on Twitch, but like I didn't have many followers on there. Because I feel like, you know, YouTube is the bigger platform where I have most of my audience is at, so I just wanted to make it easier for you guys just to actually get into it and see my stuff a lot easier. So I was like, well, we can't do it on the Xbox, so PC was the only way to go. So it's kind of worked out really well at both ends, and it's just really good. So I feel like definitely excited. You know, I think moving forward now, I'll be able to do things I've always wanted to do, just didn't have the chance to do it with the limitations that I had. So I think it'll be really nice, and I can't wait to start doing really more flights with, you know, these planes, better airports, and also if you guys want to see different types of planes, I think we touched on that earlier. You know, the A330 when it comes out, I'm looking forward to that. The Embraers for sure. I still have the Boeing planes. I still have the 737. I have the 700 and the 800 variant, so I can do some really cool flights. I can do Ryanair. I usually fly like Southwest if I'm in America with the Boeing, since I've been on Southwest quite a lot. So I think it's definitely a lot of options to do stuff, so I'm looking forward to doing all that. And if you guys also have any suggestions too, I'm always open to seeing what else is, what else is out there. I'm learning more and more as I get into aviation about the different airlines, and watching. Also, a really good channel too that you guys want to check out as well is they're on YouTube if you're into like aviation. It's called Just Planes. All their videos are really good because it kind of gives you more like a in-depth into the cockpit, and they have cameras and crew in there, and they can kind of see all the different planes if you have a particular plane that you want to see. It's a really good channel to get into because you can see the pilots actually doing the things, basically just an inside look into what they do. So I've learned a lot just from watching those videos and just getting more into that, and just seeing the Airbus procedures and the Boeing procedures and just different types of places that they fly and all the different airlines. Not every single airline is on there. I think some airlines just have a privacy thing going on, or something, I assume. But it is really good insight. I definitely recommend that channel. It's called Just Planes. If you guys look that up, it's really good. I highly recommend it. I love watching their stuff. And they upload, I think they're one of the biggest aviation channels on YouTube. I think they have like over 2 million subscribers, which is impressive. But they've also been doing it for a very long time. So it's really cool to see, the new planes that are coming in, to see what it looks like in the actual cockpit. And it's like when I see them doing the A320 videos and then coming back to the Fenix, it kind of just, I was just like, wow, the Fenix team did an absolutely amazing job in making sure how everything works and it sounds and feels like how they're doing it, and I just think that's just incredible. So I highly recommend that. Sounds like we're getting close to our top of descent, so we're about the 80 nautical miles, technically we're 88 nautical miles away from our top of descent, so we'll be starting our arrival checklist and getting prepared for our arrival in a little bit. I'm definitely going to request the weather and just make sure that we're all set on that. So, to be a little bit closer, once we get about 60, I'll start setting up everything, make sure I have the most accurate data that I can get. Weird. Oh yeah, I've noticed it does that. For some reason the plane will just like gets rocked by like 100-mile-an-hour crosswind for some reason, and then everything kind of gets thrown around. I think it's something to do with the weather updating, and then it just causes like an atmospheric, like, I don't know what it does. It does something, and it causes the plane to go crazy. Turning by itself for a second. So we'll be coming up to this point pretty soon. Just this headwind is slowing us down quite a lot. Closer, we're still getting everything all set up. We're still kind of a little too early to start setting everything up right now. I'm trying there just to bring it back down a little bit. see the UK right here. It's definitely coming in pretty quickly. So cool. It actually does, you know, block out the sun rays, which is really nice. I think it's a really nice feature that they've added. Definitely, I think this is definitely one of the longest flights I've done live. Well, I guess the other videos technically were live, I just uploaded them to YouTube, but I think this is definitely the longest one that I've done so far for everyone. I've seen other people do crazy live flights from like 6 hours long. I'm like, that's crazy. I mean, it's awesome that they do it. I just couldn't. I mean, if I had, I think of a. So there you go. Let's go and take over manual approach here. And flying. Go ahead and engage autopilot 1 again. That was definitely something to keep your eyes on. I'm not sure if if we're getting hit by actual gusts of wind or if it's the sim acting up that's causing those spikes, but whatever it was, I think everything's fine. Seatbelts are on for the time being. Everything looks normal, everything's fine. Let's go ahead and start plugging in our arrival data, so let's go ahead and request our weather set. Let's go to WX weather request. Regard Charlie. Send that, and let's go back to receive messages and get our more updated weather data. So weather data is most up to date. So let's go to our performance. Start plugging in our landing performance. So QNH is actually, let me switch it. Switch the views here because the thrust lever's in the way. Keep jumping back and forth. Let's go to receive messages, weather data. Alright. QNH is 10004. Sorry, 1004. Let's see, so temperature is 09. Just go plug in 9. Wind has already been added, but it looks like the wind has shifted. Wind is actually at 208. Or 8 at 200. It's going to shift a little bit. Transition altitude is 5,000. That's correctly set already for us. And we're going to go ahead and get our barrel minimums. So let's go ahead and pull that up on our ILS chart. Barrel minimums are right down here. So this is barrel and this is radio. Since radio is going to be more for like Cat 3 landings, I believe, and more like very unreliable visual, you know, if you can't see anything, you're going to be using those. So we're going to be using 449 as our barrel minimums. 449, plug that in. Everything is checked. Our Q and H is set, temperature set, wind is set, transition altitude is set, barrel minimums are set, final is 2, 3 right, which is checked. So that is set up. Now we've got to go to our landing performance. This is where we get our little math going here. Just shows you that the math that pilots do isn't really that complicated. So airport is Manchester, runway 23 right. Try conditions, apply the METAR, everything's looking good. Scattered clouds, it's looking fine. So now we're going to get our weight. So in order to get the weight, to get your the correct landing, or your performance to be 100% correct, basically what you got to do is go here. So that's what I was talking about. The estimated fuel endurance can be very important. So go back to our flight plan. So we're going to round up to 4.4. Take 4.4 and then subtract that from 3.8. So what I say is, yeah, 4.4. Subtract that from 3.8, and that would be 0.6. So that's 600. So 0.6 would be 600. So take off 600 from here. Do a little bit of calculation, and then that would just be, just wrong decimal. 63. So 62.4. And you plug that guy into the landing weight. So our landing weight is going to be 62.4 tons. And this will give you when the performance sinks will be stopping. It's kind of at the end of the runway, which I like to kind of hit around here so that we can go to medium auto brake. And you can see it's drastically reduced our basically our stopping time. So I think we're going to be doing a medium auto brake landing. Getting close to our top of descent marker as well. So our first constraint was going to be 290, but we're going to be passing through that. So the next down one from that one is going to be, as you can see here, 170. And if we go back to our chart, so we said 170, which is correct. That checks out because it is also 170 here. So goal this is going to be 170. This is 170, so we know everything's all checked and ready to go. Fish guns is back in time for the landing. So we're all set here. Let's go ahead and go to our, get that all set up, ready to go. So 170 is set, flight level is set. And as we get closer, we'll switch from airport to constraints to get, once we're in more of a closer range, we'll start setting that up so we can actually see on the flight display. Set. So let's go ahead and go through our checklist one more time. Prepare arrival, which we just did. We got the weather, everything's all set. MCD landing performance we just did, so that's all checked as well. Everything's looking good. So let me go back to our performance. So we're 19 nautical miles away from our top of descent marker. This is one thing I love about the Airbus is its VNAV capabilities. It'll just automatically calculate its performance and it'll get you down to that exact altitude at the exact point based on the, on the flight plan. So it'll get us to this point exactly, unless there's something else going on, or if you need more drag, if you're too heavy, it'll pop up here. You need to add more drag, which basically just deploy the speed brakes to half detent. Never want to deploy them full on a flying. Never tried it, but I don't really want to try it. So we'll be starting pretty soon. So we're going to drop this down a little bit and go to constraints, and the constraints come back up. Seatbelt signs are already on because we were encountering some pretty, I don't know if it was actual gusts of winds we were hitting or if it was the sim acting up, but looks like we'll be heading into some clouds too on the descent, so it might get a little bumpy. So we'll turn off the fasten seatbelt sign for now to get people moving around one last time before we hit our descent. Get some good views. Love that. Slow out everything's checked, and then so our transition altitude is 5,000, so 5,000 is set back to 10,004 altimeter. Also, I'm going to be flying a managed descent. Normally, ATC would probably give you different, descent now to this type of altitude, so you can do your vertical speed, which I've done on departures and some arrivals to get down to a specific point faster. But I think for this approach, based on the calculations, it looks like it'll just be a very straight in approach. I think managed will be fine for this approach. So basically what we're going to be doing is coming in, hit our flight level 10 here, and then set our next altitude to 7070. And that's going to loop us around here, and then we're basically going to take a sharp right, intercept the localizer at that right intersection, and then just straight in approach. And looks like we're going to be hitting our distance is 2 nautical miles, and I think it's good to go ahead and start our descent. Let's go ahead and push in for managed. You can tell our managed, our VNav. This little green donut is above. That means we're too low on the path, and if it's below, that means we're too high. But it kind of takes a little bit of time to kind of adjust itself. It's going to go a little bit down, and then you can see this blue. That means we're going to be hit flight level 170 at this point, which is where we're supposed to be. So I mean, that's one of the things I love about the VNav in this airplane. The Boeing does have it. It's just a little bit different. You don't actually have. You basically select the altitude you want, and then you don't touch anything. As long as you have it selected before you hit a certain constraint, then the plane will automatically start descending to that point. The Airbus, you have to manually tell the plane what to do. So I kind of like that a little bit more. I think the Boeing, obviously different types of procedures and stuff like that, but I find it very interesting that the Airbus, we have to do a managed descent or an open descent. We still have that 10 nautical mile radius, which is the fixed info, which I like doing. So I like to set up my first set of flaps around 10 nautical miles away from the airport. That kind of gives me a good range of my, basically just my approach, so I'm always in a very smooth approach. We'll have our performance set here. We'll activate our approach as we get closer in. And everything's looking good. We're in the correct speed. The speed's going up a little bit, so we'll just keep an eye on that. We don't want to hit an overspeed. The plane should be, thrust is idle right now. Just keep an eye on that. Don't want to go over. And now that we're descending, we can go ahead and turn on the fasten seatbelt signs. So I think we're going to be hitting some tough air in a second here. Flex. Also a cool feature I've noticed too, when the flaps are fully deployed, it has, you can even see the vibration, like it actually starts to flap around like it does in real life when it hits air, which is a really nice feature. Once the flaps are fully deployed, I'll show you guys. I think it's a really cool feature. Still on the correct approach. Everything's looking good. Can we get a first officer as well? Very easy approach coming in. Yes, this is what I'm very interesting right here is going to be, so we're going to loop out, come back in, back around, and then hit our designated, so we'll capture the localizer here at 3500. we're below 5,000, we'll switch altimeter. Everything's checking out though. Once we're below 10,000, we'll go through our below 10,000 checklist for right now. TCAS set to below. MCDU landing performance is reviewed. Approach briefing is completed. Navigational aids, I've set them back to constraints. EFIS, navigational. ND is EFIS ND, constraints are on. Everything is set to what I need. Baro at transition altitudes we haven't hit yet, so doing good. Beautiful clouds. I also have my volumetric cloud set to ultra, so I get like a really nice definition of my clouds. Doesn't really affect the performance at all, I've noticed. So if you're on PC, I definitely recommend setting your clouds on ultra. You can see we showed up already. Really cool feature, I love this. I also have the Navigraph app as well for Flight Sim, but since it's already, I use this mainly for flying the Boeing, since the Boeing doesn't have EFB installed, so I can't really use the charts, but since I'm here, it's easier just to look at the charts this way. Hit flight level 170, we're going to drop it down to flight level 70. And as we get closer to around here, we'll set the approach phase, be right around the localizer capture point as well. Monitoring the descent, everything's still looking good. And as we get closer here, we can go ahead and set our zoom down to 7. As we pass this constraint, it'll go from magenta to blue, and you'll see the blue line move over here then. And should be crossing over any second now. Switch to flight level 70 once we pass this constraint. So I'm going to do minor adjustments here, but for the most part, the plane is following its correct managed descent pretty well. Still doing good, everything's looking good. Once we pass 10,000, we'll go ahead and go to the landing checklist as we get closer. Drop our display down. first decel point is going to be in about 20 miles. Once we hit that, the plane will start to slow down. We're still at a high altitude, or at above 10,000, so we don't have to hit a speed restriction just yet, but once we, I believe, pass 10,000, that's when the speed will drop to 250. The plane will just automatically start doing it. Manchester add-on that I have is really nice. I think the airport detail in that is just really good. And once we land, you'll be able to see it. I think some of the best runways I've ever seen. I mean, for 1080, I know I'm streaming in 720, but I think it still looks really good, even on 720 display. For you guys, I think it's still really nice. And it's just the level of detail that's, even just for playing at the sim on 1080 is perfect. 1440, if I'm, you know, not really using a whole, like if I'm using the helicopter, I'm doing something a little bit different, I'll do 1440, but I'm happy with 1080 because I think the performance keeps my temperatures down and everything just works really well. I'm surprised my PC, you know, handles temps really well. I think I'm always in the, it's like the, yeah, 30s and 40s, sorry, 40s and 50s is usually what I'm usually rolling at. So for running a sim at that temperature range is pretty good. The only times I've spiked is when I was messing around with my settings and I'm going to the 60, but then since I changed my settings and I've added different things, I think the PC, I think I found a sweet spot for my settings. And I think definitely switching it to 30 FPS, so I have my monitor rate at half, so my monitor can go up to 60 Hertz, but I like playing at 30 FPS on this because I think the performance, it caps it at 30, so the PC isn't working overtime to go higher than that. So I've noticed that this, you know, I don't really need 30 FPS for this, you know, as long as, right, sorry, I don't need 60, if I'm running 30, I'm fine with that, and I think it runs pretty well. I mean, as far as you can see, and I think it's very smooth. Obviously, as it gets closer to, you know, busier airports and stuff like that, especially with my add-on traffic that I have, it starts to kind of lag a little bit, but it's not terrible. The LAX airport that I have that I got from Any Builds, that one definitely, he definitely knows some chugging going on with that, but even then it still handles it really well. So I think that, you know, good graphics card, good CPU, good fan and airflow on your PC will definitely make your games, you know, last longer too. I have 7 fans in total on my PC, and I have an airflow made tower, so it has airflow made in mind, which is really nice. So I definitely know some very good performance with this PC that I have, and I believe it's starting to drop our speed to make our restrictions. Since we're getting closer to 10,000, we need to hit 250 at this point right here. Honestly, you can intervene. You can actually select your speed and stuff like that if you need to be more specific. If ATC gives you more of a direction, but I feel like for managed, I think we can handle it fine with this type of route that we have here. Manchester Airport is somewhere. Somewhere over there. On the clouds up there. Very slow descent as we have the wrap around this, intercept it right here. Looking good. It's been a pretty, I mean, as you can see, it's like, you know, very smooth. Everything has been working 100% correctly. I would love to do, I think the next stream I'll definitely try to figure out a different location. I'm trying to hit different places I haven't been before, or maybe longer flights as well. But I think a 2-hour flight should be pretty good, I think. That cruise really gets kind of boring after a while. You just sit there watching the displays. Nothing's really going on. We had a couple of weird things going on while we were about to hit our descent. As I said, I'm not sure if that was like actual gusts of wind or I just think there was something going on with the sim. That's a password 10,000. Fish guns, yeah, I have my TV on 60 FPS, maybe that's why it gets stutter sometimes. I would say definitely try it. Doesn't hurt. So if you have, if you're running 60, I mean, it looks great when it does work at 60, but I feel like, well, I noticed a really big improvement in terms of my temps and stuff when I switched down to 30. And honestly, I think it's still manageable at 30. I know some people, you know, they're on PC, they like to have it at 60 or more. I just don't think flight simulator is that type of unless you have a really good system, definitely do it. But I've noticed like I can get 60 frames no problem when I'm cruising and when I take off. I can get 60 frames at really decent airports. But when I'm at bigger airports with a plane like this, I definitely noticed it does stutter a lot. And then when I switch to 30, I definitely noticed a little bit more of an improvement. Also, and I changed some settings around, and I think running at 1080 definitely helps reduce the load on your GPU as well. And I have my Fenix running on the CPU render. I haven't tried it with the GPU. I know they say the CPU is recommended for the Fenix, so I could always try that too. I've never really tried much of a difference on that. I just find the CPU runs really well. My CPU tends to, I mean, I got a pretty good CPU and it hasn't really had any issues at all, so definitely try it. I definitely say, hey, it's all about trying things and seeing what works for you. I mean, I have a setting that might not work for you, and you have a setting that might work for you, but doesn't work for me. So I feel like with anyone, I feel like it's the great thing about the you know, advantages of having PC. You can really customize it any way you want. But I think 30 FPS is more than enough for me on this. When I do play other PC games, you know, obviously I do 60, because I'm playing games that are like not as CPU intensive or GPU intensive. I feel like that works for me. I kind of want to make sure I find a balance between performance and looks, and I think I have a sweet spot of like I can get my sim to look as good as it does in and it runs as well as it does, and I feel like I have a sweet spot. And I know sometimes the flight simulator, it resets all your settings for some reason on PC. I've noticed that sometimes, especially when they come out with a new update. So I take pictures of my settings, so if it does happen, I can just revert back to them. But I've kind of just messed around with them, and I've gotten, I've looked at other YouTubers and what their settings are like, and I've kind of just, found what works for me. Let's see. I'm gonna bring up my microphone volume just a little bit and see if that works. Let me know how that sounds. So this is my first stream on OBS too, so I'm still learning. How I don't want to blow your guys' eardrums out either. So let me know if it's too loud now or if it needs to be adjusted. Once I find a sweet spot, I'll save it, dial it in. Also could just be the stream. I'm good now? Awesome. Yeah, that's my one thing. I don't want to sound louder than what's going on. I'm trying to find a good sound here, but first stream, kind of trial and error as we go. First stream on OBS, I should say, not first stream in general. I found like the Xbox streaming on Twitch handled it very well, surprisingly. I wanted to make sure I think streaming to YouTube was more of my goal, since, all my fan base and followers are on there, so I might as well make it more accessible. Alright, so you're below 10,000. I've already activated the landing lights are on, wing lights are set. We're in the landing checklist now, but we haven't quite got to our landing point just yet. We're still on track for 7,000, and after 7,000 we will descend to 3,500, and that's when we'll capture the localizer. And once we hit 5,000, we'll switch back to, I believe it was 10,004. Yeah, 10,004. That's where our QNH will be. And everything's looking good. Still on the checklist. I highly recommend getting a checklist. I got my checklist on flightsim.to. I'm using the A320 Neo checklist, but it's essentially exactly the same thing. The Neo and the Airbus 200, Airbus 320-200 are essentially the same, it's just different engines. There's some differences here and there with the flight model and the fuel and stuff like that, but first, everything is in the correct position. I'm sure there's definitely a lot of in between, a lot of little things that are different, but I'm using that. Highly recommend if you guys get it. I just printed it out, stapled it, and I follow the checklist every single time, and it gets me to where I need to be every single time. The Boeing checklist is a whole different ball game. It's like double the amount of instructions, since the Airbus or the Boeing has way more things going on for it, for obvious reasons. It's more of an analog type feel. Cool thing too is I can also block out the sun. Alright, we are about to hit 7,000, so let's go ahead and drop down to 3,500 and have that set. It should bring us right down. It's going to be magenta still, but once we pass this constraint, it'll drop us right down. And I can already hear the engines are dropping down to 230. Bring us in a little lower, I think. That stutter, yeah, I think that was definitely loading the airport right there. There's always one little lag, a little freeze, loading in all those details in the airport. Should drop us down to 3,500 any second. Should see the blue line pop up right here. There it is. And we also have our go around procedure set. And we're still on the approach for the landing, so we won't set up our landing checklist just yet, but we're on track to be doing so. Keep an eye on the altitude for 5,000. Some nice shots here. It's a Liverpool from here. Definitely somewhere close by, I know that for sure. It's about to pass 1,000 to go to 5,000. We're almost set. So one thing I am going to upgrade to eventually is going to be, I'm using a flight stick, like a joystick right now. I'm using the Thrustmaster, I think it's the, I can't even remember what the model is, but it's the one that you can use for the Xbox. That's what I was using before. I think it's like the $80 one. It's like the black one. And it has like a connected throttle quadrant with the joystick, but I will eventually upgrade to the Airbus TCA Thrustmaster. I just feel like it'd just be so much easier. I know there's a couple things I don't like with this joystick with this model plane that just don't really work. I notice the reversers. I'll deploy my reversers, but that they don't actually deploy. I keep hitting the button, like I have my throttle set down, and then I'll decrease the throttle once I'm actually cut the engine. And then the reversers just don't deploy. They work fine on the Boeing, but it'd be nicer to actually have the Airbus actually has that actually has the reversers. These guys right here, you can actually pull those up on the actual quadrant, which is really nice. So I had them a long time ago, but I found out that they didn't work for Xbox. So, but now they do. So you can get them for PC and Xbox. Let's go ahead and switch back to 1004. Set that on the first officer side. And the artificial. Let's go ahead and set our landing system ready. We'll be hitting it pretty soon. And also on the artificial. Get rid of this because I need to see what I'm doing. About to intercept the localizer in a second, or the glide slope. Get some kind of bumpy here over these hills right here. And once we do that, once we hit about 10 miles on this ring, start setting out our first set of flaps. T-Flight HOTUS, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one that I have. It's good. Don't get me wrong, it's really good for the price. I just noticed that I think it'd be easier having the other one that I have, having the Airbus one, I think would be a lot more fun. Since we caught it, let's go ahead and arm the approach mode. Glide slope and localizer are captured, and we're going to go to... So we're going to speed up here, activate approach phase. Get the runway in sight in a second. Runway's in sight, and we're about to hit our 10-mile ring here, and that's when I'll deploy the flaps. We're below the flap indicator, so we can deploy our flaps whenever we need to. Let's go ahead and set autopilot 2, dual input, or dual autopilot here. Alright, let's go ahead and go flaps 1. And once we're about 6 miles from the airport, we'll go ahead and drop our landing gear. All lights are still set correctly. Don't need to worry about those. Everything looking good. Seatbelt signs are on, obviously. Landing lights are deployed.
2,500.
Now I have the GPWS calling out. go ahead and go flaps 2 in just a second once we pass below this yellow notch right here. Let's go flaps 2. And I'll be deploying landing gear in a second once we're about 6 miles from the runway, so I'd say in a little bit we'll deploy those. Got kind of a strong headwind into our approach here, so should be an interesting landing. Alright, let's go ahead and go gear down. Nose lights set to taxi. Runway turn off lights are on. Auto brake set to medium. Ground spoilers are now armed. Flaps almost full, so let's go ahead and go flaps 3. And we're still below, and let's go flaps full. Landing memo, no blue. We're all set. Landing checklist is complete. Now we're just gotta bring this thing down. Everything's set. We're all good. Once we hit about 1,000, I'll disconnect the autopilot and bring us in. About to hit 1,000.
1,000.
1,000. Alright, I am taking control. I have control. Just looking at my flight director, making sure I'm lined up correctly. Kind of getting a slight crosswind to the left. Oh yeah, this is nice. This is nice bumpy weather coming in.
$500. 400. 300. 100 above.
Check.
200. Minimum.
Continue.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 10. 5.
Zero down. Reversers. Decel. Max reverse. Once we're below 60, disengage reversers, which we are. Manual braking, and that is it. To get off here, we'll start prepping for the after landing checklist. I'd say that's a pretty good touchdown. I like when there's like a little bit of a turbulence coming in, so it's my favorite. It actually makes you get to do something. Alright, so just slow down a bit here. Go ahead and get our landing lights off. Wing lights can come off, strobes are off, beacon lights can stay on, taxi lights are on, that's good. Let's go ahead and disengage spoilers. Pick up the flaps. Get rid of all these nav aids here. Let's see, spoilers, weather radar. Let's go ahead and stop here to make sure our checklist is complete before we move forward. Landing lights off, nose wheel lights set to taxi, flaps are up, spoilers are retracted, disarmed, weather radar is off, predictive wind shear is off, TCAS is off, check, terrain not on, APU, let's go ahead and start our APU ready. Wait 3 seconds. Start there. Anti-ice, we don't need that. Engine anti-ice, we don't need that. APU bleed. So we're ready. I think we're ready to push forward. Go ahead and find us a stand or a jetway to get connected to. There's Manchester. Try and see if we can park with company. I think I see an easyJet over there somewhere. Very smooth, I'd say. And let's keep an eye on the APU. APU is still going. Once we get a veil light, we'll go ahead and go to APU bleed. APU bleed is on. I think it's bright enough. I don't think we need turn off lights. Just leave the taxi lights on. Here, it's fine. Parked up over there, that should be good. The airport add-on that I have is not too bad for it, but I think the Manchester one is definitely, I think, a little bit better. Get some power going up here. Go ahead and park on the other side of this terminal over here. I think I'll park next to this 737 right here. Looks like there's a gate available. Looks like there is. As we're coming in, we can turn off the taxi light. Don't want to blind the marshalers. Well, there's no one there, but anyway. Let's get lined up here. Alright, parking brake set. Let's see, parking brake set, and nav aids are off, light directors 1 and 2 are off. Everything's set, constraints are set, that's set. Let's bring this back down to 10. Alright, engine master off. Let's go ahead and get the jetway connected. Local checkway, and we can turn off engine masters 1, 2, and 1. Plane's going to shift over to APU power. Fuel pumps can come off. We should get a deboard. Yes, we do. And go ahead and deboard the plane. Let's go ahead and beacon lights off. Seatbelt signs off. External power on if available. Transponder is off. cockpit door is open. Not bad. I think we can go ahead and select, I think we have GPU, ground power unit available, so let's go ahead and switch to external power. Turn off the APU. I think we've let the APU run enough today. I think that's it. Securing the aircraft, we think we'll skip that one. That's basically just turning off the plane completely. But for the most part, this is basically ready for a turnaround state at this point. Other than that, I think that went pretty good. I think it's set. Boarding. And I think let's see here. Here. Everything's looking good. Yeah, everything's all set off. Sorry guys, just checking something real quick. Alright, I think that is it. I'd say that was a pretty good first flight after 8 months of, since my last upload. So I think once this is all set, I'm good trial and error just to testing the stream, making sure everything's running correctly. And if you guys have any feedback on the stream, because I was hear what's going on, but if you guys have any suggestions or anything like that, please let me know. But in the meantime, I appreciate you guys, still being there for me. I appreciate you guys, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this. So, make sure to follow my Instagram and Twitter if you want. I'll be uploading more onto YouTube, posting for live streams and start uploading stuff there, so you guys can get more notifications when I'm actually going to be going live, and I'll try to make things easier for you guys. And now that I can actually post on YouTube now, it's a lot, I should be able to, things should be a lot easier. I think with that, I think we're all ready to go. Yeah, if you guys have any, leave a comment. I'm going to be uploading this video later, so you guys can comment, and hopefully my other viewers can see it. If you guys didn't actually have a chance to view it today live, you can always just watch it. But hopefully I can see you guys in the next live stream that I'll do, and I'll probably be uploading a little bit more frequently now that I have everything all set up correctly. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. It was good chatting with everyone. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. And I think that's it. Alright guys, I'll see you guys in the next one.